The European Union's foreign policy chief, Federica Mogherini, says Venezuela's leader, Nicolas Maduro, needs to announce new elections soon. She indicated the bloc will otherwise recognize the self-proclaimed interim president, Juan Guaido. In the last few minutes, Venezuela has rejected that call. The UN Security Council has been meeting in an emergency session to discuss the crisis. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo called on the world to support Venezuelan protesters. But Russia's UN ambassador says the world should stay out of the crisis. Moscow and Beijing have been among Maduro's chief backers. Washington has already recognized Juan Guaido as Venezuela's interim leader. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo addressed the Security Council and called on nations to choose a side in Venezuela's crisis.
Now it's time for every other nation to pick a side. No more delays, no more games. Either you stand with the forces of freedom or you're in league with Maduro and his mayhem. Today we call on all members of the Security Council to support Venezuela's democratic transition and Interim President Guaido's role in it. Thank you.
DW correspondent Oliver Salad attended the session of the Security Council in New York, from where he joins me now. Oliver, Mike Pompeo is calling on countries there to back Guaido. Which members of the Council will recognize that call and which will not?
Well, there were several countries here that were not happy even discussing the issue of and the situation of Venezuela here at the Security Council. The most prominent one was Russia. Among them were also China, also South Africa, for instance. But the most aggressive position that we've heard here came by Russia. Russia really tried to narrow this down to an American problem here that only the United States are following and are trying to push for. That they're treating Latin America as sort of like their backyard where they could do whatever they want to do, and that they're just following their own geopolitical interests. They're being interested for the oil of the country. Interestingly, you have to take into consideration that Russia was a close ally of the Maduro regime in recent years. They have spent billions of dollars in infrastructure and military projects and received oil in turn, and that was very much reflected this close partnership here at the United Nations Security Council, Russia backing Venezuela here when it comes to a possible regime change within the next months.
Okay, Oliver, if you'll just bear with us for a moment, we have tape of the Venezuelan foreign minister who also addressed the Security Council. Let's play a little bit of what he had to say.
And we want to say that at this opportunity, in this case, the United States is not behind the coup d'etat. It is in advance. It's in the vanguard of the coup d'etat. It is dictating the orders, not only to the Venezuelan opposition, but also to the satellite governments in the region.
So, Oliver, a familiar narrative to many in Latin America, the Venezuelan representative accusing the United States of organizing a coup d'etat. Do any other council members, at least publicly, share that view?
In the absence of an announcement, well, some do, and the overall argument is always that those are internal problems, that the sovereignty of Venezuela has to be respected. That's what we heard by the Russian ambassador, for instance, and by the Southern African ambassador as well. So basically we have a narrative here of this standpoint versus the other narrative of the Western countries that are trying to stress that there's a humanitarian tragedy, that millions of people had to flee the country. And so there's very much a standoff here at the Security Council of the United Nations.
Okay, thank you so much. That's DW's Oliver Salad reporting for us in New York.